I got
after
it.
it.
I got it.
Okay.
They 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 call it the Columbian Exposition Quarter or the Isabella Quarter, and it was authorized by Congress at the request of the Board of Lady Managers of the World's Columbian Expo. So basically, the women said, we want a woman on a coin." So there you go.
And you know what? We had a lot of women on our coins then, so I mean,
We
it seems
did,
like a fitting place.
yeah. But
But this is the first depiction of any real person on United States coinage.
Christopher Columbus and
And Queen
Isabella.
Isabella, yeah,
Yep.
those are the
Yep.
first real people to appear, and neither one of them are American.
Yeah. um, there's also things like people. I've seen people that collect original tickets for the expo. The tickets were actually made by the American Banknote Company, and they're really actually kind of ornate, and they remind me a lot of the fractional currency that we used in the 1870s.
Now, are we talking like ornate, like as in printing like money, or just ornate as in
They
kind of back in the day ornate?
Oh
Because
no. They have like one of them has a bust of Abraham Lincoln. One of them has a
oh
bust of
wow,
Indian chief. I mean, these are not.
engraved,
Yeah, no, they were made by the American Banknote Company, which made
sweet.
a lot of currency for a lot of different countries. Um, Also, one of the things, and actually to me, probably one of the most important things to come out of the Columbian Expo. Did you realize that vendors at the Columbian Exposition issued over 600 different medals and tokens,
Each for their booths and their
each for either their booths. Some advertising was done for companies. Like I'm looking at one here that is for the Berry brothers. They're manufacturers of varnishers and original sole manufacturer of the Genie Hard Oil Finish out of Detroit, Michigan. And they created a token, a souvenir for the World's Fair that had a picture of one of the exhibition halls on it, and then their advertising on the other side. And there's a lot of these. Like I said, there's over 600 different ones. A lot of them reference Columbus. There are a lot of different effigies of Columbus, but there's also some that celebrate the Ferris wheel. There's some that celebrate the ships, the Santa Maria. There's also some that celebrate the city of Chicago itself, the Chicago Fire. Just there's another one that from the Cincinnati Pure Aluminum Company that was made out of aluminum. It was trying to get people to use aluminum, so they made these tokens and gave them out at the expo or sold them. They also made a lot of key fobs and all sorts of stuff like that. But they made over 600 different just tokens and medals.
now these are, I guess, would be classified as like advertising tokens because they're not really like good fors or anything like that, are they?
No. Some of them are advertising, definitely. They really are not good for us, but some of them are really, really well done. And actually, there's a really cool website, and it is www.1893columbianexpo.com. So if you want to navigate to that while I'm talking about it, there is a relatively complete listing of the medals that were issued at the World's Fair of Chicago. So you can take a look through all these different medals. Some of them are amazing. I mean, like for example, the Eglet 105. So I'll let you get there, Mike.
Okay, Eglit, Eglit, Eglit
Yep,
material,
Eglet.
and let's see,
So go
105
down to where it
bronze,
says,
also made in white metal.
yeah, but look at that thing. Tell me that is not absolutely gorgeous.
Well, the reverse is, I mean, one of the more spectacular things I've seen on a coin ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's can only really be described as sculpture.
It is pretty, and it really it is. But this is the kind of stuff that was coming out of the expo. And if you scroll down a little bit farther, you'll see one that celebrates the Ferris wheel and a bunch of the other buildings that were there.
And I
But
think a lot of this and the ornate nature of it and the engineering mastery of it was really kind of being celebrated during what they called the Beaux-Arts movement, which is what was going on in the world at the time. That was the typical art movement.
yep. And I heard a story, a very interesting story about the actual release of the Columbian Exposition half dollars. Did you know that they did make proof examples of these coins?
You know, here's the thing: is whenever they make something, I would expect at least
Mm-hmm.
that the first couple of strikes that are going to come off of anything are going to be at least proof like. You're talking specifically proof
I'm talking
coins?
specifically proof.
No, then
Uh,
I'm completely unaware of them.
yes, they did. They sure did. The 1892s have a mintage of 103 pieces,
Wow.
and the 1893s have a mintage of 5.
So they made proofs for both years, and that was one of
They
the things
did.
that I thought was interesting to mention about these Columbian Expo half dollars. Whereas the Isabella quarters are
They
only
also made
they're-
proof Isabellas.
well, the Isabella quarters are all dated 1893,
Yes.
but the Columbian half dollars are dated both 1892 and 1893.
But yeah, they did both proofs of all the coins that were issued.
Now, the story, and you can see this in the Red Book, is that a lot of the Columbian Expo half dollars remained unsold, and a substantial quality was later released for circulation at face value. And it does say in the Red Book right here, approximately 100 brilliant proofs were struck for each date. So there you go. Kudos to Ken Brissett in giving us the skinny on that. On this website that you had pointed out, they've got pictures of like all the elongates
Mm-hmm.
and the admission tickets. Yeah, you're right. This is a very, very cool website, and those tickets really do kind of look like fractionals. That's what they remind me of. The
Yeah,
engraving on them is just,
I told you.
yeah.
Now there is a cool story that goes with the 1892 Columbian Exposition halves. The Remington Typewriter Company paid $10,000 as a publicity stunt to receive the first example struck. And the story goes that the first example struck had a very minor strike through on the reverse, and the Remington Typewriter Company rejected that coin and asked for another one.
I've heard this story.
Yes, and I've actually had the first one in my hand. It was returned back to the mint and sold later. But that's how you know that particular coin was the first one, actually the first one made. They sent it back, but
And that coin just happened into your shop one time, didn't it?
not well. The owner of it I've known, and I'm not sure if he even owns it anymore, but he just came in the store with it one time. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so you've got elongates, you've got medals, you've got tickets, you've got stock certificates, commemorative half dollars and quarters.
Yeah, that website, like I said, that website's really neat. If you need to kill a half an hour and you're sitting in front of a computer, 1893columbianexpo.com, check it out. There's, like I said, there's all sorts of really cool stuff to look at, and it might spark your interest in the coins and tokens and medals of the Columbian Expo.
This is Ilya Leonov, and you're listening to the Coin Show Radio.
Matt,
Yeah,
we sometimes get lots of mail.
yeah, we were inundated lately. What the heck?
Sometimes we get mail, and we get them at questions@coinshowradio.com. We get them at Mike at coinshowradio.com. We get them at Matt at coinshowradio.com. But we sometimes even go out and solicit
Occasionally,
occasionally.
feeling froggy.
And so this week in particular, you solicited some questions
I may have.
from our friends at Friends of the Coin Show.
I may have done such a thing.
What were some of the results coming from the Friends of the Coin Show there, Matt?
well, let me pull them up here. One of the first questions that I just jumps up to me is by a guy named Zach Horve, Horve, and he asks, "Where do I start if I want to start collecting early American coppers?" Good question.
It is a good question.
Well, funny enough, there is a group out there,
No,
an organization called
Early
American
American
coppers. Yep.
coppers.
And they're referred to lovingly as the EAC. Um,
And the strictest graders I've ever seen.
yeah, well, that's part of what makes them special.
It's part of their charm.
That's part of what makes them special, Mike. But that's a great organization to get involved in. I'm a member. Sam, who works for me at the shop, is a member. It's a great organization that is really dedicated to nothing but educating about early American coppers. So I would really recommend starting off there. There's also some really good books out there, depending on what your interests are, whether it's colonials or large cents or half cents. Would kind of depend on which one of those books I could recommend for you. But there's there's one called Penny Whimsy, which was one of the earlier books put out.
By William Sheldon.
Yep, by William Sheldon. That would be a good place to start. There's also the Breen Encyclopedia of both large and half cents, which that's a rather expensive book, but there's a lot of good information in it. So first things first, though, like I said, I would really look into joining early American coppers. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, it's a really good organization. It's someplace where you can really learn an awful lot. And copper, especially, is a metal that has a lot to tell you.
Yeah, they're tricky. They're tricky, but they're very historic.
You got to learn how to read them. You got to really learn a lot about state of metal preservation and oxidation. And I think copper tells more of its secrets than any other metal out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Going to questions at coinshowradio.com, I have a question for you.
For me?
See, well, for us.
I was going to say, I just answered.
Well,
I'm kidding. I don't.
Sorry, I don't mean to put you out.
I don't mind.
David Vanasek writes, maybe for the show, or if you can answer, that would be great. Discovered your show last year and love it. We love you. Thank you, David. Working my way through the archive and looking forward to each new episode. I am recently back into collecting, and my focus is on completing the best $50 set that I can afford. I found online and shows and my local that the availability of mid-grade certified barber halves seems to be very low. Now, he's talking about from VF25 to XF45.
That is correct.
The high ends are currently out of my price range, and the low grades are just kind of awful. Is there a reason for this, or do I just need to keep looking? Now, I'm going to tell you from not even being a coin dealer, there's a very, very real reason why you have a hard time finding barber coins in that particular range. Mm-hmm. And it's because the coins circulated.
Yes, they did.
And they circulated heavily. And so basically what you have are the coins that were saved and were saved from circulation, and then you have the ones that did all the work.
Yep. Well,
and there's not a whole lot of mid-grade stuff out there.
Yep. I mean, those coins would have circulated in two of the greatest economic struggles that our country ever went through, which being the Great Depression and then also the Depression of 1892. These coins would have been circulating in those times. So you're exactly right. They did a lot of work. They bought a lot of bread. They just did what they were supposed to do. And
yeah, I mean, if you look at barber designs on circulated coins, particularly your goods, about goods, very goods, I mean, you really, really see it's like most of the coins that I've seen fall into that range, and it's just because they were needed for what they were. I don't think coin collecting was tremendously popular. I mean, not like it, was in its heyday, and people didn't necessarily have the money to put this stuff away. So, yeah, the few really nice high-end examples that you get probably came from people that really did have enough to put them aside and to collect them and preserve them for posterity. And, were it not for those people, I mean, geez, we'd have nothing left.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. I have more seated Liberty halves and cap bust halves currently in the collection, as they seem to be more readily available. And that also is true. They did not circulate anywhere near as much as the barber coins did. And I think that also is a little history lesson in the fact that they were worth a lot more money to, relative to each other than the barber coins were.
Yeah.
As inflation kind of made a quarter more something that you found in somebody's pocket, you're going to expect to see that the quarters are more worn.